We've got a transportation system that cannot function without oil.
Dr. Anthony Perl thinks it's time for a revolution. He's the author of Transport Revolutions, Moving People and Freight Without Oil.
Burrard Inlet has pretty much the biggest cross-section of motorized mobility that you'd find in any major city in Canada. You have everything from seaplanes and helicopters buzzing in and out to ocean-going container vessels, bulk carriers, cruise ships, and in the distance, of course, you even see the jet aircraft coming from YVR. The one thing that all of this diversity had in common is that it's all fueled by oil. A lot of what we take for granted now involves long trips for us and for our goods on very energy-intensive modes of transportation. Transportation is almost entirely dependent on oil as a fuel, and it's the single biggest user of oil in the world.
Infrastructure built today will need to serve us in a future that's short of energy. Transportation consultant Bryn Davidson.
Well, I'd like to talk about the combination of peak oil and climate change being the global energy transition. So what we're engaged in is a decades-long transition away from cheap oil and gas. We need to figure out how do we make it so that we can move people, we can move goods, we can grow food, we can make products, all of these things with less and less oil going forward. We need to first acknowledge peak oil as a real and profoundly important influence on how we do our planning.
High prices of oil could cause 4 types of transport revolutions. Electric motors will replace internal combustion engines. Electric vehicles will be grid-powered by rail or wires. Marine transport will utilize wind power. Air travel and air freight will decline.
At some point, people will be looking for alternative technology and alternative fuel sources, and there's a few of them that are more promising than others.
According to Dr. Perl, the only thing that's ready for prime time are electric motors.
Vancouver already has the seeds of an electric transportation alternative. Electricity can be generated by many different energy sources. Oil is not required at all.
I mean, at the moment, oil is something like 98% of our transport system, and we're going to have to start to shift that. That's going to mean starting with hybrid cars, electric transit, electric rail freight.
Building more transport infrastructure that's designed for oil-intensive modes like SUVs, aircraft, that's just going to be obsolete by the time it comes into use. So new highways, airport expansions, we have to have the courage to pull the plug on those and redesign to provide mobility, but to provide mobility that won't require oil-based transportation.
We can't afford to replace a lot of this highway-oriented infrastructure that we built over the last 40 years. This is both a real opportunity, but it's also going to be a real challenge because we're so used to just growing.
So we're going to need political leaders who feel like they can get elected and stay elected if they take some of these choices. And I think individuals, need to support whichever parties or political organizations they feel will move that forward.